The War of the Roses, a dark descent into England's bloodstained past. The War of the Roses, a name that evokes images of delicate flowers stained with blood, was anything but poetic. It was a brutal, internecine conflict that tore England apart for over 3 decades, from 1455 to 1487. Beneath the surface of this seemingly romanticized name lay a dark, twisted saga of ambition, betrayal, and carnage. The roots of this war were buried deep in the soil of England's feudal past, watered by the blood of kings and nobles, and nourished by the rot of corruption and greed. Its progress was marked by treachery, slaughter, and the collapse of moral order, while its result left the nation scarred, its nobility decimated, and its people broken. This is not a tale of chivalry or honor, it is a chronicle of darkness, where the thorns of power pierced the heart of England and left it bleeding. Now before we move on, please help a small channel grow. Please like and subscribe. If you have any comments, good or bad, leave them below. Back to the story. The roots, a kingdom divided. The seeds of the War of the Roses were sown long before the first battle was fought. They lay in the tangled web of England's royal lineage, where ambition and entitlement festered like a disease. The conflict was, at its core, a dynastic struggle between 2 rival branches of the Plantagenet family, the House of Lancaster, symbolized by the red rose, and the House of York, symbolized by the white rose. Both houses traced their lineage to King Edward III, whose numerous descendants became both a blessing and a curse for the realm. The Lancastrians held the throne through Henry IV, who had usurped it from Richard II in 1399. His son, Henry V, became a national hero after his victory at Agincourt, but his early death left the crown to his infant son, Henry VI. Henry VI was a weak and ineffectual ruler, prone to bouts of madness and utterly unsuited to the demands of kingship. His reign was marked by mismanagement, corruption, and the loss of England's territories in France, which eroded the prestige of the monarchy and sowed discontent among the nobility. The Yorkists, on the other hand, were led by Richard, Duke of York, a man of ambition and capability who believed he had a stronger claim to the throne. The Yorkist faction grew in strength as Henry VI's incompetence became increasingly apparent. The kingdom was already teetering on the edge of chaos, with rival factions vying for power and the common people suffering under the weight of heavy taxation and lawlessness. The stage was set for a conflict that would plunge England into darkness. The progress, a descent into bloodshed. The War of the Roses officially began in 1455 with the First Battle of St. Albans, a skirmish that seemed minor in comparison to the carnage that would follow. Yet, it was a harbinger of the brutality to come. The Yorkists, led by Richard of York, emerged victorious, and Henry VI was captured. But this was only the beginning. The conflict would escalate into a series of bloody battles, each more savage than the last, as the 2 houses fought for supremacy. The battles were not merely clashes of armies, they were personal vendettas played out on a grand scale. Nobles who had once dined together now sought to destroy one another. The Battle of Towton in 1461, fought in a blinding snowstorm, was one of the bloodiest in English history. Tens of thousands of men were slaughtered, their bodies left to freeze in the fields. The Yorkists emerged victorious, and Edward IV, the son of Richard of York, was crowned king. But the victory was short-lived. The Lancastrians, led by Henry VI's queen, Margaret of Anjou, continued to fight, and the war dragged on. The conflict was marked by treachery and shifting allegiances. The Earl of Warwick, known as the Kingmaker, initially supported the Yorkists but later switched sides, restoring Henry VI to the throne in 1470. Edward IV, however, returned from exile and reclaimed the crown after the Battle of Tewkesbury in 1471. The Lancastrian cause was dealt a fatal blow when Henry VI's son, Edward of Westminster, was killed in battle, and Henry himself died mysteriously in the Tower of London, likely murdered on Edward's orders. But the darkness did not end with Edward IV's reign. His death in 1483 plunged the kingdom into chaos once more. His brother, Richard III seized the throne, imprisoning and likely murdering Edward's young sons, the princes in the Tower. Richard's usurpation alienated many of his supporters, and the Yorkist faction began to fracture. The Lancastrians, now led by Henry Tudor, saw an opportunity to strike. In 1485, at the Battle of Bosworth Field, Richard III was killed, and Henry Tudor was crowned Henry VII, marking the end of the Plantagenet dynasty and the beginning of the Tudor era. The result: a nation scarred. The War of the Roses left England in a state of devastation. The nobility, once the backbone of the realm, had been decimated. Entire families were wiped out, their lands confiscated, and their names erased from history. The common people, who had borne the brunt of the conflict, were left impoverished and disillusioned. The war had exposed the fragility of the feudal system and the dangers of unchecked ambition. Henry VII's victory at Bosworth Field brought an end to the immediate conflict, but the scars of the war would linger for generations. The Tudor dynasty sought to heal the wounds of the past, but the memory of the bloodshed could not be erased. The War of the Roses became a cautionary tale, a reminder of the cost of greed and the fragility of power. Yet, even in its darkness, the war had a profound impact on England's future. The rise of the Tudors marked the beginning of a new era, one in which the monarchy sought to centralize power and reduce the influence of the nobility. The war also paved the way for the Renaissance and the Reformation, as England emerged from the shadows of its medieval past. Conclusion: the thorns of power. The War of the Roses was not a romantic struggle between noble houses, it was a descent into darkness, a brutal conflict that exposed the worst of human nature. It was a war fought not for ideals or justice, but for power and survival. The roots of the conflict lay in the greed and ambition of a few, but its consequences were felt by all. The progress of the war was marked by betrayal, slaughter, and the collapse of moral order, while its result left the nation scarred and its people broken. In the end, the War of the Roses serves as a stark reminder of the cost of power and the fragility of peace. The thorns of ambition pierced the heart of England, leaving it bleeding and broken. Yet, from the ashes of this dark chapter, a new England would emerge, one that would rise to greatness but never forget the lessons of its blood-stained past. The roses may have been red and white, but the war they symbolized was painted in shades of black and crimson, a testament to the darkness that lies within the human soul. Please like and subscribe.